Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I'm back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I've received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's no filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, how important are progress photos versus scale weight? Incredibly important. One of the things, one of the many metrics that I use to gauge progress with my online clients is progress photos. For me, these are incredibly beneficial, okay? And for multiple reasons. But the main reason is that the number on the scale does not tell the whole story. All right. So let's say, for example, you're on a nutritional plan and you're trying to lose weight. Everything is going well. You're losing weight on a consistent basis, and all of a sudden you hit a plateau. You hit stalled on the scale. The scale is no longer going down. We start reducing calories. The scale is still not going down. We start giving you more cardio. The scale is still not going down. Maybe it's even going up. Now you start to think, well, what am I doing wrong here? Should I keep dropping my calories? Should I keep increasing my cardio? If you don't have those photos to compare, and I don't mean compare from week to week, I mean from every 2 to 3 weeks to see how your body composition is changing, and you're only going by that number, you're going to fall into that trap of trying to do more when more is not necessary. Okay. And I've seen this before with people who they hit that plateau and then they do start doing more cardio, or they do start decreasing their calories. And what I do when I'm working with a client who's hit a plateau for 2 or 3 weeks with their weight is I start to look at their photos. I say, you're not losing weight on the scale, but if you compare your photo today compared to your photo 3 weeks ago, when you're roughly around the same weight, you're actually looking leaner in today's photo. So what's happened in this case is that you've lost body fat and yet you've added on muscle. So your body composition has changed. And I've seen this for years with people. And I'll tell you, I have a few people who are a little shy and they don't like to do progress photos. I say, that's okay. But I say, just keep in mind that when you do hit this plateau, because we all hit a plateau. I've been doing this for over 20 years. Everyone hits a plateau, myself included. It becomes more difficult to troubleshoot and navigate your way through the routes as to which route you should take versus which route you shouldn't take, what you should do as far as cardio, diet, resistance training. When you don't have those photos, it's very difficult. Okay, so it's a tool to use. And you know what I do tell those people who don't want to send me those photos is I say, just take the photos for yourself. Even if you don't like the way you look, because there's a lot of people that don't like the way they look when they're sitting in a selfie in their underwear. Um, I say, it's only you. You're the only person that sees those photos. Okay. And a lot of people do send me their photos, and I'm the only one that sees those photos. And anyone that works with me knows that I don't post photos up on social media unless someone tags me in a photo or they give me permission to share those photos. But rarely, if ever, do I share my clients' progress photos because I feel like that's an invasion of privacy. Okay. But I think they're really beneficial to have because, again, if you're just going by that number on the scale, you're asking for problems. Because if your goal is to lose fat and build muscle, then I would imagine that your ultimate goal is to transform your body composition. It's not just strictly to lose weight. And I've talked about in the past that losing weight is fairly easy to do, right? If you don't really care about adding on muscle, just go do a bunch of cardio, go into a starvation diet, you'll lose all kinds of weight. You will. You'll become a skinny little rake, okay? Will you be able to maintain that physique? Probably not, because whatever you're doing to get down to that level of body fat or that number on the scale is extreme, and you're not going to be able to maintain that for life. So any weight that you do lose, you're just going to put back on once you come off the diet, okay? And that's why when I work with people on their nutritional plans, I try to create a formula that is sustainable for life to follow. All right. It's not just let's just give you this 8 week plan or 12 week plan and see you later. It's like, no, no, no. This is what I'm trying to teach you how to portion control, how to make sure that you're eating properly, as far as making sure you're getting a good balance of complex carbohydrates, lean proteins, and healthy fats into your diet. Okay. So it's not just about let's lose weight. Let's learn how to fuel the body properly through proper nutrition and how to strategically train in the gym so that you're adding on the most amount of muscle. Because as I've said time and time again, the more muscle mass you have, the more calories your body's going to burn in a rested state. So it only makes sense if you're trying to lose body fat to make sure you're doing weight training. Okay. So are progress photos important? Absolutely. And I would actually say that progress photos are even more important than checking the scale every week. All right. Next question. Nick, what's the best chest exercise for overall chest development? I'm a firm believer that when you're training chest, you should always prioritize upper chest. Okay. And this is for men and for women because both men and women, we still have pec major, which is responsible for your pressing movements, and we both have pec minor, which is your flying movements. Okay. I'm a firm believer, though, that 80% of the pectoralis major is located up top. All right. So it only makes sense to start with incline work. Now, whether that incline work be an incline barbell bench press or an incline dumbbell bench press, that's really up to you. Personally, I like to start with an incline barbell press because that's when I'm at my strongest. I usually don't train with a training partner anymore. I usually train on my own, so I don't really need a spotter because I am training at my strongest. I'm not training at the end of the workout where I'm at my weakest. The last thing you want to do is get caught under a bar on your by yourself while you're training chest and no one's around, right? So do it at the beginning of your workout. Typically, what I like to do with a lot of my clients is I'll start them with a low incline barbell bench press, okay, and then I'll move into a flat barbell bench press, and I'll throw in a high incline dumbbell chest press afterwards. So I'm still working the flat, but I really prioritize the incline work in two of the first three exercises. I'll also throw in some low incline dumbbell flies as well. So I'll typically do about three exercises for the upper chest. And for the mid chest, I'll do some flat dumbbell presses or flat barbell presses and some cable crossovers. Okay. So I always have two fly movements and at least three pressing movements. Okay. But two of those three pressing movements are going to be upper chest. So incline work. Okay. And always one of those two flies is going to be also incline. So low incline flies, that works great. Okay. I think a lot of people make the mistake of when they go into the gym to train chest, they start with a flat barbell press. I feel that that's actually not only is that I don't feel like that's a great way to target the pecs, but I feel that's a good way to get injured. Okay. Because when you're working on a flat angle, you are using your anterior deltoids a little bit more than you would be if you are working on a low incline or a high incline. And I know that seems like, what's he talking about? We're on a high incline. We're almost on a shoulder press. Of course, we're working more delts. Not necessarily. If you're training your chest correctly, you're going to retract your shoulders into that bench and pop your chest up. So you're working your way from the top to the bottom. That's why I say hit the upper chest first and then move down to the mid chest second. As far as lower chest, I don't really do any work for lower chest. I don't believe in decline presses or decline flies. I find that puts a lot of emphasis on the rotator cuff, so I don't advise people to do that. If you're someone who likes doing decline work, I say do it, but I say be very careful because the range of motion is very limited. Okay, you'll notice anyone that does decline presses, the range of motion is very limited and it puts a lot of pressure on those joints. So I don't advise people to do it, but if you're someone who enjoys doing them, by all means do it. Just be careful. But if your goal is to build a bigger chest or just a more firm chest or a chest that's upright, start with upper chest first. I promise you. It's going to make a world of difference in your overall chest development. Okay. Nick, should back training prioritize thickness or width? Honestly, it should prioritize both. All right. And I talked about in the past when I used to compete, one of the biggest critiques I would get from judges is that my back was too small. Okay. So I went back to the drawing board and I created two back days. One was a pull down day for the width and one was a row day for the thickness. So I created two back days. Now, you don't have to create two back days to develop a great back, okay? But for me, that was a genetic weakness that I had. I just never had a strong back, okay? But I honestly think it's important to prioritize both. So if you're doing a back workout, my recommendation is to have at least two rows and at least two different pull downs in that workout. So that could look like something like a bent over barbell row and then a vertical V-bar row on the cable, okay? And for a pull down, that could be a lat pull down, pronated grip, and a closed grip pull down, okay? I was obviously all the back is the largest muscle group in the human body. It's not the legs. So there's tons of different exercises that you can do for the back. As I said, you can do further width. You can do a pronated grip lat pull down, a closed grip lat pull down. You could do a reverse grip pull down. You could do chin ups. You could do two separate cables and do isolateral pull downs. So that's like five or six exercises just for pull downs and pull ups alone, right? And then you've got rows. Oh my God, with rows, you could do bent over barbell rows using a supinated grip or a pronated grip. You could do bent over T-bar rows using a neutral grip. You could do some cable work with some pronation rows. You could do some vertical rows again with a neutral grip. So there's all kinds of exercises that you can do for the back. As most people know, I'm not a huge advocate of deadlifts. So I'm not saying don't do them. I personally don't do deadlifts. I have stopped doing deadlifts in my early 20s. I didn't find them to be beneficial for me. But if you're trying to work the lower back, I also like to throw in hyperextensions, okay? Because I find that's a great way to bring up those spinal erectors. So that's another exercise you can do. So to me, you should prioritize both, but also assess your physique. So if you're someone who genetically just has a wider back, you've got that V taper. Some people do, both men and women. Lucky for you. So if I were you, then I'd focus more on the thickness of the back. Don't neglect the width, though. Just because that's a strong point, don't neglect it, but you probably don't need to do as much work to it. So maybe you only need to do one pull down. It could be just the lat pull down and do four sets of that. That might be enough for you. Okay. But I always found for me, because it was a weak muscle group, I had to target every area. So that's why I had my rows on one day and my pull downs on one day. And another thing, because I'm super OCD, what I would do is I'd flip flop those workouts around from week to week. So one wouldn't be stronger than the other. So one week I would do the thickness workout first, all the rows first, and then I'd follow that up with the pull down the next day. And the next week I'd flip that around, do the pull downs first, and then the thickness the next day. Okay. But that's me. Okay. I'm a little OCD like that. But even to this day, I no longer compete and I still have two back days because I think, again, the back is the largest muscle. I don't think, I know. The back is the largest muscle group in a human body. So why not? If you're someone who's in the gym 5, 6 days a week like I am, why not give back 2 days? Okay. I promise you, you won't run out of exercises. There's tons of exercises for the back. And in my opinion, it should be hit with lots and lots of volume. All right. Okay. Nick, how much direct arm work do advanced lifters really need? I think everyone, whether you're beginner, intermediate, or advanced, should have their arms on their own day. I really do. Now, obviously, if you're only in the gym 2 times a week, that's not practical. Okay. You might have to put arms with the shoulder days. Okay. Or put arms with a full upper body workout, whatever it may be. But if you are someone who is serious about transforming your physique, and you're trying to sculpt your muscle bellies, I truly believe arms should be on their own day. Okay. Because when you think of your arms, okay, you have two heads for your bicep and you have three heads for your tricep. That's five different exercises alone. Okay. For that reason alone, they should have their own day. Okay. So my recommendation is that everyone has at least three exercises for their triceps and at least two exercises for their biceps. For myself and for the clients I work with, if I'm working with someone who's in the gym 5, 6 days a week, I will give them their own arm day. And during that arm day, we usually do about anywhere from 12 to 14 exercises for the arms. And we'll usually get in anywhere from 48 to 54 sets for arms. And I know people go, that's incredible. That's overtraining. Your arms will never grow. Bullshit. Bullshit. If you're training your arms once a week and you're using that much volume, you're not going to shrink. You're not going to overtrain. You're not going to go into a catabolic state. No, because your arms are going to get that direct work that I believe is necessary to build not just big muscle, but solid, lean, dense muscle, muscle that's defined. All right. And I'm talking for both men and women here, because who doesn't want to have defined arms? Do you really want to have flabby arms? Probably not, right? So, in my opinion, that's the best way to hit them because, yes, you're going to work your arms indirectly when you do seated rows or lat pull downs or bench press or seated dumbbell press. Of course, your arms are going to work indirectly, but they're not contracting directly. You're not actually stimulating muscle fibers in the brachialis when you're doing seated rows. That's just your synergist muscle. So it's helping assist with the pull, but it's not contracting. Okay. Or if it is contracting, it's not recruiting more muscle fibers to actually grow for hypertrophy. All right. You need to do some dumbbell curls. You need to do some barbell curls. You need to do some preacher curls. You need to do some rope hammer curls, right? Same thing for the triceps. Doing bench press alone is not going to build big triceps unless you're a genetic freak. It's not going to happen. If you want to sculpt your triceps and develop like that nice horseshoe in the back, you're going to want to make sure you're doing your rope extensions, your narrow bar press downs, your V bar press downs, your skull crushers, your dumbbell kickbacks. Those to me are all essential if you want to kind of build like almost like that 3D dimensional work look in your arms. All right. And again, I've never met anyone who doesn't want to have nice looking arms. So I've met people who don't want to have big arms, and I understand that. But giving your arms its own day and giving your arms lots of volume is not necessarily going to create big arms, okay? But it is going to create that solid, lean, dense look that a lot of people like to have in their arms. So to answer that question, yes, I don't care how advanced you are in your training. In my opinion, everyone should train their arms, and everyone should train their arms on their own day if you're in the gym 4 or 5 days a week. All right. Okay. Nick, what's the best way to bring up stubborn calves? Oh, I've talked about this a few times in the past. So I can't demonstrate here, but I've got a few videos on calf training on my Instagram. So if you go to my Instagram, _, you can check them out. But with your calves have two muscles in your calves. One's called the gastrocnemius and one's called the soleus. When most people train their calves, one of the things that they do wrong is they don't use full range of motion. So when you're training your calves, you want to make sure that if what you're doing a standing calf raise, for example, whether it's on a machine or on a in the squat rack with a barbell, like the videos I have on my Instagram, you want to make sure that you're utilizing that full range of motion to the best of your ability. So that means when you're going down, your heel should almost touch the floor if you're doing a standing barbell calf raise, right? But when you come up, what a lot of people make the mistake of doing is they just come up once. But when you come up once, you're only activating the gastrocnemius. So you're on your tippy toes. If you go up one more time, now you're working your gastrocnemius and your soleus. So it's like a 1-2 hop. Okay. So you get up on your tippy toes once and then you do it one more time for tip and then boom. That right there will give you the best contraction in both your gastrocnemius and your soleus. Okay. When I first started training, I had weak calves. I mean, you couldn't even tell I had calves. Like most men, I had shitty calves. But what I found helped develop my calves over the years was by utilizing the full range of motion, which again, I don't see people doing, making sure that when I come up, I squeeze. So I do that 1-2 hop, but I hold it for a good 1-2 hold. So I squeeze that contraction on the concentric contraction. And when I go down, when I bring my heels to the ground, I do that slowly. So I'm controlling the eccentric contraction. All right. I also utilize high repetitions. Why? Well, I always do my calves with 20, 25 reps for a set because your calves are so used to being, well, if you're someone who walks a lot, you're walking all day or you're walking like to your job or you're walking to restaurants, wherever you're doing, you're walking, right? So your calves are used to higher repetitions, right? So they're going to respond better to higher repetitions, especially when you're making them contract in ways that they're not used to contracting, okay? That's why when most people, when they train their calves with me, they can barely walk for a week because their calves are so sore. Like, oh my God, I've never actually done this. They utilize their calves when they walk, but no one's walking on their tippy toes. But you are still using your calves when you walk, right? So you want to make sure that when you're training your calves, it's not about doing 5 to 6 reps of a super heavy weight. Take the weight down. Make sure you're utilizing full range of motion and make sure that when you do come up, you give it that 1-2 hold and you hold it for, 1, 2, 3 and lower it again. All right. But always control it. And I guarantee you, if you did that for 3 months, you're going to notice some size in your calves, 100%. Okay. Because I've worked with tons of people over the years. It's usually the men that want to make their calves bigger. Most women don't want to make their calves bigger, in my experience, because then they can't get their legs into boots. That becomes an issue. Or, most women just don't want big calves. I've trained a few women who do want big calves, but rarely. Most women don't really want bigger calves. So I don't do as much calf work with the women that I do with the guys, because most guys I work with do want calves, especially when they're wearing shorts. They want to show off their calves. But I promise you, if you really want to create bigger calves and more defined, like you want to have vascular calves, keep the reps high. So minimum 20 reps. Okay. Don't go down to even 10 reps, 20 reps, 1-2 holds at the top, 1-2 jumps, 1-2 pauses, control the eccentric contraction. That's how you're going to build your calves. All right. Okay. Nick, how important is exercise order within a workout? Very important. You can't just make it up as you go. The people who make it up as they go are the people that never see results. Okay. And I see this time and time again. People go into the gym, they have no game plan. They just wander from whatever is available. So maybe the squat rack is available, which is rarely available. Let's say the squat rack's available. They might go do some squats. Then, no, all of a sudden, okay, now the chest press is available. So now they're going to do like a vertical chest press machine. And then all of a sudden, oh, maybe I've got a cable available. So I'm going to do some standing rope hammer curls. Well, that workout doesn't make any sense. You're going from legs to chest to biceps. It has to make sense. Okay. So you have to go in with a game plan. Yeah, obviously, if you're working in a commercial gym and it's really busy, you might have to, change up that game plan a little bit, but it should be like, well, today I'm going into the gym to train chest, but well, the bench press is taken right now, so I'm going to go and do some walking lunges. No, you're not training legs today, you're training chest. So find an alternative to that bench press. There's another bench available. I'm going to do some dumbbell presses instead. Okay, now I'm working chest. Perfect. Okay. So you have to have a plan. My recommendation too is when you are training to make sure you do your compound lifts before your isolation movements. So that means you want to do your squats at the beginning of a workout, your leg press at the beginning of the workout, your hack squats at the beginning of the workout, your bench press at the beginning of the workout. I would not recommend doing dumbbell flies before you do a bench press, nor would I recommend doing leg extensions before squats. I know some people do them to warm up their knees with a light weight. That's fine, but I wouldn't do actual working sets to pre-exhaust your quads to do squats. Okay. So I wouldn't advise people doing that. The only time I recommend people do compound exercises at the end of a workout is if they're trying to bring up a lagging body part or they've hit a plateau. I talked about this last week too with squats, is that if, for example, you're stuck on a weight, let's say it's 225, you cannot squat more than that. Take a break from putting squats in at the beginning of your workout, do a bunch of exercises before, and at the end of your workout, your leg workout, finish with squats. And you might not even be able to do 25 at that point. That's fine, but your muscles are already going to be fatigued. So you're going to recruit more muscle fibers, and that's how you're going to strengthen your squats. And after a few weeks, go back and put squats in, you'll notice your weight goes up. I talked about that last week. So if you want to learn more on that, go to last week's episode. I went into great detail about putting compound exercises at the end of your workout. But for the most part, I recommend doing compound exercises at the beginning of your workout. I compare it to a recipe. If you're following a recipe, you want to follow it step by step. Same thing in the gym. All right. So your workout has to make sense. You want to go in with a game plan. And again, sometimes, like I said, if the gym is really busy, you do, even my gym, it gets busy from time to time. So let's say I really want to do, I don't know, let's say I really want to do a standing barbell military press with my client, but all the squat racks are taken. So I don't have access to any barbells. But you know what? I have a bench and I can put that bench at 9 degrees and I have a pair of dumbbells. So I can give them a seated dumbbell shoulder press. So I'm still working the anterior deltoids. But I don't go, oh, I can't do standing barbell military press, which works the anterior deltoids. And now I'm just going to go do some seated rows, which work the back. No. Okay. So it's a good way to get injured and it's a good way to not see results because you're not training the body in the most efficient manner possibly. Okay. So my recommendation to you, make sure your workout makes sense and make sure you're putting your compound exercises at the beginning of your workout and the isolation exercises towards the tail end of your workout. All right. Okay. Two more questions here. Nick, why do most people fail to maintain their body transformations? Oh, multiple reasons, but in my experience, it's because they're doing too much, too soon, and too extreme. So what I mean by that is a lot of people when they go on this, let's say they have a goal and they want to lose, I don't know, 50 pounds. They want to transform their physique, right? They're very motivated at the beginning, and all the power to them. Like they're very motivated. They made this game plan. Maybe they've hired a personal trainer, whether they're working with an online coach for their diet, whatever it be, they joined a gym, but they're ready to make a change with their health and their physique. And that's great. But what I notice is a lot of people, what they do is they go all in. So what I mean by that is you take someone who in December had never even been to a gym or was at a gym sporadically once every few months, right? Never did a cardio. Their version of cardio was walking from their car to their house, right? So never did cardio. So they go in January 1st to the gym, they join a gym, and they're in the gym for 2, 3 hours. They're doing weightlifting, usually videos they find on YouTube, usually incorrectly, and they're doing an hour and a half cardio. Okay. So what happens with someone like that is they start to burn out their receptors because they overtrain. They're doing too much too soon. They're taking it to extreme measures. So now they're in the gym 2 hours a day. Let's go to their diet. Maybe they found a diet plan online that's a weight loss plan. They use ChatGPT to find a perfect diet that's going to help them lose their 50 pounds. But that diet is very low calories. And that diet doesn't contain any beer or pizza or burgers or fries. And that diet just sucks. That person is going to, after 2, 3 weeks, start to get a little bit discouraged. Maybe the scale is not going down as quickly as it was in those first 2 weeks, and now they start to falter. Okay. Or you have people who go on this transformation and they stick with it 12 weeks, 16 weeks. Hell, I've seen people stick with the transformation 24 weeks for a bodybuilding prep. And then 2 weeks after that prep is done, after the show is done, they don't even look like they train. Okay, because they just shit the bed with their diet. They don't even go to the gym, and water weight came back on. They put on a bunch of body fat because what they were doing was too extreme. All right. So I've talked about in the past, whenever I work with a new client, I always ask, I'm like, how well versed are you in the gym? How experienced are you in the gym? Do you already go to the gym? And if someone's already in the gym like 3 or 4 times a week, they're like, yeah, but I want to work with a trainer now because I feel like I want to, up my game. I want to better my physique. I want to better my health. I want to learn some new movements. I'm like, all right, great. You're already in the gym 3, 4 times a week. You're already pretty self-disciplined. You don't need me for that. You don't need the accountability factor. You need me as your coach to help take that accountability factor and take what you're doing and tweak it so we can get you up to that next level. That's someone who's highly motivated, right? And I have a lot of clients like that, especially with clients that compete. They're highly motivated. They don't need that accountability factor from me. All right. Those people, though, at the same time, I find that even if I tell them to do 30 minutes of cardio, they're going to do 60 minutes of cardio because those people are extremists, right? But I even have to tell them to scale it back sometimes. But someone who's brand new to the gym, I say, your goal was to lose 50 pounds, for example. I don't want you in the gym more than 3 times a week right now. If you get to the gym 3 times a week for the first 2 weeks, that's 6 workouts, that's a win. And I promise you, if you do that, I promise you, if you do that and you're following the diet that I've laid out for you, you're going to lose at least 2 pounds. And now 2 pounds might not seem a lot in 2 weeks, but you have to remember, you're taking someone who's been completely sedentary, okay, inactive, unhealthy, maybe pre-diabetic, who knows, all kinds of health issues, right? You're taking that person and now you're trying to slowly implement not just changes, but change bad habits into good habits. So I talked about that 2 weeks ago on the channel about the challenge that I have as a coach of helping people turn bad habits into good habits. And that to me is actually one of the most challenging things that I do with people is because that alone is a process. So that's why I tell people don't even worry about like, yes, I know you want to lose 50 pounds, but let's not put a timeline that says that has to be done in the next 3 months. Let's make a realistic timeline. So we're going to set those SMART goals, a specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely goal. So if you're brand new to the gym, can you lose 50 pounds in 3 months? Absolutely. You can. But here's the thing. Are you going to put that 50 pounds back on after those 3 months are done? And in most cases, a lot of people do. All right. So, in my experience, why people falter and why people fail on their physique transformations long term, they can't maintain that, is because whatever they were doing was too much, too soon, too extreme. All right. Start off slow, build on those good habits. Hey, I went to the gym 3 times this week. Great. Next week, my goal is to go 3 times and add in a fourth day that's just cardio. Perfect. After that, my goal, I did all that. Great. My next goal, I'm going to clean up my diet. Right now, I'm having one bad meal a day. Okay. Let's say I'm going out for lunch, Chipotle's or whatever it is. Instead of doing that every day, I'm now going to try to make that 3 times a week. Perfect. You ace that. Great. Why don't we try doing that now just once a week? Perfect. Why don't we limit it to just one cheat meal a week? Excellent. So you're adding on good habits as you go, right? And then what happens is it's easier to maintain that lifestyle because you slowly have transformed not just your physique, but more importantly, your daily habits. And that's what I really try to take the drive home message to my clients that work for me online and in-house is that we're trying to transform not just physiques, but we're trying to improve your quality of life by getting rid of bad habits and implementing good ones. All right. And that alone is a challenge. And not everyone's going to do that overnight. For most people, it takes a lot of time. Okay. A lot of patience. There's going to be times where you want to stop. There's going to be times when you want to give up. But if you have a coach in your corner, an experienced coach that can guide you, hold you accountable when necessary, and give you the honest truth, and not be someone who's just constantly like a cheerleader in your corner. So you're doing great, keep going. But here's the thing, if you're not doing great, I will call you on your bullshit. I will. I'm like, why were you in the gym only once this week? Why were you out binge drinking for 3 days in a row? I will call you on your bullshit. I won't scold you. You're an adult, but I'm going to be realistic with you, right? And that's what you're paying me to do. I'm your coach. Okay. So I don't bullshit my clients. If someone is not looking great, I don't tell them they're looking great. Okay, I say you could look better. We need to get to work. We need to push harder. Okay. Or if I have someone who's pushing too hard, I got to tell them, like, take your foot off the gas. All right. Go have a cheat meal. So you have to learn the personality you're working with because there's two different personalities. Well, there's different personalities out there, but in my experience, there's two very different personalities with clients. And once you learn that personality type that you're working with, that's how you troubleshoot as a coach to help that person achieve his or hers goals. All right. Last question. Nick, is cardio necessary for fat loss? I had a similar question today, or actually, I think it was yesterday. What day is it today? I can't remember what day it is, but I had a similar question earlier this week from one of my online clients. And this person is losing weight, and now they're starting to increase their cardio. And I was looking over their check-in, and I noticed that this person has been increasing their cardio quite a bit. Right now, I have them doing about 30 minutes of cardio a day. They started to increase their cardio to an hour a day, and I didn't tell them to do that. So I had to ask them, like, why are you doing so much cardio? And the answer was, well, I feel like I can. I feel like, and it's going to help fast track my fat loss. I'm like, right, but if we're already losing weight on a consistent basis, we're losing 2, 3 pounds a week right now, and you're doing that with just 30 minutes of cardio. Why add more in right now? We don't need it. 2 to 3 pounds a week is fantastic. I don't want you losing 5 or 6 pounds a week because if you're losing 5 or 6 pounds a week, there's a good chance that some of that weight's going to be muscle, especially if you're someone who's not morbidly obese. Now, if you're morbidly obese, yes, if you're 400 pounds and you're losing 5 pounds a week, that's very realistic that most of that will be fat. But if you're someone who is, maybe 30 pounds overweight, like this person, losing 5 pounds a week is not a good idea, okay? Because all that's going to be muscle and water, so it won't just be strictly body fat. So I don't want them losing a tons of weight, okay? And I said, no, the reason I have you doing 30 minutes of cardio right now is because less is best. If we can get you losing weight or losing fat, I should say, while eating lots of carbs, lots of fats, lots of protein. So you're never feeling starving. Like you're never like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. I'm going to faint. I have no energy. That's perfect. And if we can continue to lose weight with very minimal cardio, even better. I never tell people don't do cardio because I think cardio is very important for overall heart health. But I think it's a mistake, and I've talked about this before on the channel, to rely on cardio for fat loss purposes. All right. And the reason why it's a mistake is because once you hit that plateau, when I talked about this earlier, we all hit a plateau and you're now doing an hour of cardio. What are you going to do now? 2 hours of cardio? 3 hours of cardio? Where does it stop? So if you can get great results with the least amount of work, why not do that? Right? I mean, it's the same thing you'd want to do with business or with anything in life. If you can get the same results. You can get great, fantastic results without putting in so much time and effort into something. Why not? Like, I'm not saying don't put time and effort into something, of course, but you don't want to like work yourself like a horse and just be exhausted and hungry and irritable and have no energy all day because you're doing an hour of cardio and you're on 50 grams of carbs a day. That's not good. All right. Because you will hit a plateau and then you won't know what to do. So, really what I always tell people too, the analogy I use is if you were going into a gunfight, you wouldn't shoot off all your ammunition in the air within the first 30 seconds, or at least I hope you wouldn't, right? Because you have no ammunition left. So keep your ammunition for as long as you possibly can. All right. And then as you hit that plateau, it's like, oh, you know what? I'm only doing 30 minutes of cardio and now my weight has stalled. I'm not losing any body fat. Maybe I'll add on another 10 minutes of cardio a day, not 30 minutes, 10 minutes. And all of a sudden, like that extra 10 minutes, you're doing cardio, let's say 5 days a week. Oh, wow. Now I'm doing 50 minutes more cardio. Boom. My weight's going down again. Perfect. Okay. Once you hit another plateau, should I increase my cardio? Or, no, let's look at the diet. Maybe I should decrease my carbohydrates and maybe increase my protein. Hey, that worked. Now I'm losing weight again. So that's how you do it when you're trying to lose weight strategically and not just weight, but when you're trying to lose body fat strategically and preserve and build muscle. All right. There is a strategy to follow, and it's one that I followed for years, and it's one that works. All right. But people who just do too much too soon, too extreme, just like in the last question, they don't last. And when you hit a plateau, you're screwed because there's nowhere left to go. You've shot all your ammunition up in the air. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, January the 18th. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your training program, your nutritional plan, your supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, my online coaching business, as well as my in-house personal training business here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I truly do appreciate all the support and all the feedback that I receive from each and every single one of you. Thank you all once again, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now.